All right, welcome back. I hope you're having an awesome time so far. Our next panel is titled Increase ROI Through Tech. How are asset managers utilizing technology? Please join me in welcoming our panelists to the virtual stage. And I'll hand it over to Jeanette, our moderator.
Good morning, everybody. We are pleased to have you on this panel. As technology grows, importance to resident attraction, retention, and experience, it can be somewhat impactful and very important. As property owners integrate new technology into their portfolios, they can see a very real and measurable return on their investments. As an asset manager, how should you be thinking about technology in your assets? Join this panel to hear how experts have used technology to benefit their portfolio's performance. I will start off with introductions, and I will take it from here. Jerry, if you want to start us off and introduce yourself.
I am Jerry Thomas from CIM Group. We are an owner-operator of multifamily, commercial, and retail assets all across North America and South America. And I've got 25 plus years in the industry as an asset manager, and am a closet tech junkie. So I try to use tech as much as I can everywhere possible.
Thank you, Jerry. David, would you like to go next?
Sorry about that, I was on mute. So I'm David Perez, Chief Operating Officer with CARROLL. We are an owner-operator of multifamily across the Southeast and Southwest. Around 30,000 units under our management today, and have been sort of building a best-in-breed tech stack across CARROLL for the last 4 years, and continually evaluating the ways technology can help us do things bigger, better, faster, stronger.
Fantastic, thank you. Yetta?
Hi, I'm Yetta Tropper. I am with PGIM Real Estate. I head up our multifamily asset management team. We cover approximately 60,000 units across the country, about 15,000 of which are under development. I have a dedicated team of approximately 20 multifamily asset managers, also spread out across the country. And we don't self-manage. We have our partners such as David manage on our behalf, or third-party managers, but we're super focused on prop tech and ESG right now.
Thank you so much. Graham.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. My name is Graham Thiel. I'm a design and construction manager with Presidio Bay. We're a San Francisco-based commercial real estate developer with a broad range of project types, including multifamily apartment, condos, commercial office, and life science. Really excited to be on the panel today. My background is in design and construction project management with a focus on integrating aspects of technology and sustainability in projects. So really excited to be on the panel and speak with you all today.
Fantastic, thank you. And I am Jeanette Mendez, your moderator for this morning. I am your national account manager for ADT Multifamily. So I specialize in making apartments and portfolios smart throughout the nation. And of course, offering all those common solution products that ADT is known for the multifamily client. And with that, let's start off with the first question. And of course, you may answer as you'd like. So it's whoever's first here. So what technologies have you found to be most effective in increasing the value of an asset? Anybody want to answer that one for me?
I'll go ahead and jump in on that one.
Okay.
I think bringing technology to operations is just a critical piece to success, especially where we are today in 2021. Whether it's from the back-end analysis systems in underwriting to really the technology-based systems that impact the day-to-day stuff at the properties. Key fobs, entry systems, package storage, delivery, all of those things. They all drive value in making the operation more efficient and less reliant on human capital, which is, a push to really allow us to be more effective in all of the operations across any type of property long-term.
Thank you, Jerry.
Jerry, I think you make a great point there, and how much we don't think about automation or sort of RPA kind of things in the background to really automate so much of what we've done manually. I think we struggle with different reporting requirements that we ask on-site folks to go and do, and they aren't necessarily focused as much on customer and customer satisfaction when they're sort of sitting behind a computer. So I think automation on that back end is huge. From a pure, B2C kind of concept, I think more recently people have probably perfected a little bit better the smart home, and I think we're seeing some adoption of the smart technologies. I think all the bells and whistles that existed before, I think were a little much, but we're certainly seeing some adoption and people really willing to kind of step out of that threshold, particularly for smart thermostats, smart locks, and even some of the water meters as Yetta mentioned, start to really understand or try to understand where ESG and different ESG kinds of things are going. A lot of these smart technologies can help us record the usage and do better things around there.
I absolutely agree. I think the ones that are easier to wrap your arms around are the technology products that either increase revenue or decrease expenses, but we also have another bucket for those that just increase operation efficiencies and maybe a little bit intangible or not as easy to measure.
And let me ask you all, so from the technologies you have implemented, have there been some that you found to be ineffective?
Yes, unfortunately, I would say our package solutions, we still haven't found the holy grail there. We've tried quite a lot and almost everything I think that's out there. We're still searching, but really it also boils down to those technologies that don't integrate well with the workflow processes on site. And so we haven't had the buy-in and the adoption, and that integration was lacking.
And I would agree with Yetta's point on like the package solutions. I think that there's plenty of them out there, but that industry itself, not just the solutions, but the delivery of packages is an ever-changing process. And that's what makes it so hard to actually find the right solution, because you may find a right solution today that tomorrow is not going to work. And because that one's always changing, it's always a moving target.
I think Yetta and Jerry are making great points around the adoption of technology. It's one thing to have a great product or a great service, but if it's not something that your property managers are able to pick up and run with, or your clients and tenants are be able to integrate into their daily lives, it's a challenge that could end up in, as the moderator led off with Jeanette, an exercise in failure as opposed to something that was thought to lead into success.
Absolutely. Next question. How are asset managers thinking about virtual leasing technologies? Are you finding them to be effective? And do you see them remaining in the future?
So as the resident asset manager, maybe I'll start. We find it crucial, right? Especially during COVID. I think we were headed in that direction pre-pandemic, and the pandemic sort of accelerated the adoption of these virtual leasing technology, software, and integration into all the other products. It's crucial when our offices were closed that we were still able to lease. We've seen, working with over 30 different property management companies, I've seen various products that have been deployed to cover the virtual leasing aspect, and some work better than others. I don't think I found one that's perfect for every solution. I think it really depends on the management company and, like I said before, their workflow processes. But I do think it's here to stay. I think the younger demographic have gotten used to being able to sit on their couch or at the bar and pick out an apartment and not really talk to as many people as we used to have to talk to get that process done. I think it's not just that younger demographic. I think everybody has gotten used to the efficiencies that's been created. So it's really a matter of finding a solution that works for your individual needs and running with it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that, where would we be today if over the last 15 months we didn't have virtual leasing? I mean, it would have impacted, the leasing revenue, the occupancy, even our employee retention, right? As you try to get employees to be able to stay in contact and connected and yet still socially distanced through, all the parameters that we're putting in place across the states and the countries. Virtual leasing, it's not the beginning of the end to personal leasing. There's always going to be a need for some personal leasing, but it definitely is a fixture going forward. And until, until that next frontier of leasing takes place, it is the fixture and sort of front and center on everything that we do.
I think it's important to further define what virtual leasing is. And I think, it certainly is another avenue to advertise yourself anyway. And consumers were already gravitating towards this. They already are smarter than you are before the time they show up. They know the latest comp survey based on what they're looking at. They know everything about the property, everything about the neighborhood, if they're already showing up either virtually or not. So it really acts as an additional way for you to even just get out there. So the virtual leasing process, you can do that walkthrough of that home before you even go tour it. And you could still make that decision. And I think creating those additional decision points or conversion points allows us to get, better visibility to the funnel and likely create some additional sort of touch points in that funnel to bring customers along as they've, grown from, hey, I'm looking at this picture in a book to, hey, I'm looking at a picture online to, hey, now I can, go through an entire experience online and understand everything I need to know before I even get to that neighborhood or get to that property.
Absolutely.
I'm actually curious to the group of what tools and technologies folks have been using for virtual leasing. Over at Presidio Bay, we do kind of an integration within the website, leverage tools like Matterport for the 3D touring, but just curious to see what has been successful for, say products and software solutions for virtual leasing.
I know we've seen Matterport also be very successful, Reallink, Smart Rent. I think a lot of Tour24, there's a lot of different providers out there. We've also seen some of our management companies create their own tours that are hosted within our websites, which are just videos of our leasing consultants walking around apartments. We've done virtual reality leasing tours where you can actually, if you have the virtual reality glasses, you can get a whole experience. So like I said before, there's many different avenues that you can implement, and it really depends on what integrates with the process. Along with the virtual leasing, we've also done a lot of the self-guided tours, and Graham, you would know that from the new developments, making sure that access control and wayfinding is important as those people are coming in by themselves and not necessarily relying on a leasing consultant to take them around.
All right. I have a third question here for our panelists. So how can implementing technology operationally affect the performance of your property or portfolio? This is an amazing one, and I will let you guys answer. Who wants to take this one?
So I think we touched on a little bit early on in the insights that you can really draw. So previously you might have a question, and I'm very much about like, are you asking the right question, or are you just kind of boiling the ocean around information and data? And I think if you can narrow down and understand where you might have a challenge. So, at CARROLL, we've really broken it down, and we've redone the customer journey to understand where along our residents' journey are we having issues. So if we're having issues in the very upfront, trying to get just leads turning into prospects, and then those prospects to visit, is there something broken there in that funnel? Grabbing and going and getting a lot of that information and then looking at it is quite time consuming. So to the extent that you can sit there and say, all right, I want to understand these conversion points along this customer journey to understand, is my advertising working? Do I need more training on site to convert? Are people having a good move-in experience? Are my maintenance guys doing anything efficiently and effectively? And how are my consumers feeling about their experience? Going and collecting all that data sits in 4 or 5 different points. So we've really been working hard to accumulate that in a single type of environment where we can have a snapshot on a weekly or monthly basis to understand trends and make those more actionable for team members, so that they're not sitting around trying to just pull all this data together and then it's already stale and they can't actually take action on it. That is the biggest, I think, operational kind of insight that we can gain is just put all that data in front of somebody that they can actually take action on it much sooner than they have in the past.
That's a great way to look at it. And I think that, how it impacts people, when we look at technology and implementing it into operations in the internal teams, it's really about the organization's culture for creating a platform that seeks knowledge and creativity. Because if you've got a team that is open to using technology, there's plenty of things that you're going to find that work well or don't work well, and you're going to test some things and it comes back. But if you get stuck in, this is the way we've always done it mindset, even if that includes some technology, some form of technology, if you get stuck in that mindset, then you're really limiting your ability to be the best you can. And I think, to what David's point was on how it impacts people, and then the time suck sometimes that it comes to try to evaluate the data. And to do that, if you can take that out of the hands of the frontline people and put it into a position where we can analyze the data in a bigger picture, and I think we'll probably talk about data later, but as we can do that, that really makes a difference. So you want to create that culture with your team that really allows them to utilize technology and to think and seek ways to be creative and know how to do things.
Yeah, all really good points around creating culture of creativity and playfulness with that technology. I think, echoing both David's points as well, too, just being able to frame the decision and bring the information to the forefront in a way that is digestible. So you're not necessarily boiling the ocean, but you're presenting the right information to make the right decisions in real time. And data isn't stale. I think it kind of goes into what you're looking from a data collection standpoint, how your team sees information, how they process it, how they communicate it. So I think the more that we can look to leveraging tools and technology to bring that information, say to various teams at various levels in a more democratized way, I think just proves to be beneficial across all aspects of an operational organization.
Absolutely. Graham, I have a question for you.
Sure.
So this one's for you. So when assessing new deals and developments, how can technology help commercial real estate professionals to make decisions?
Sure. There's a lot there. I'll kind of speak to my kind of bailiwick of design and construction, kind of taking things from a real estate acquisition standpoint into operations. I think early on, it's crucial for us to make a quick assessment, as I kind of spoke to being able to frame the decision. Is this a viable development site? Is this a viable property that we can transform or reconfigure or adaptively reuse? So for us, it's how can we quickly capture that information if it is an existing building through aspects of LiDAR or 360 photography, and how can we communicate to our teams that we may not have onboarded yet, noting that we would want rapid input from planning consultants, land use consultants, architects, engineers, general contractors, and subcontractors, all things that take a long time to move through a traditional design process to then get the information you need on a go forward. So leveraging historical data that's developed by the group and then applying ways of rapidly capturing and digesting information to determine if you're going to make a decision on a deal that might take 6 to 18 months to move through design and into construction. Again, being able to leverage current tools and technology to bring the information up front is kind of where it's at and where we need to be the savvy, lean, sophisticated team that we are here. As the goal of my role in design and construction is to position properties into successful operations for the various panelists that are here on the asset management side, I always look to bring in input and information from those operators, from those building managers as early into the design and construction process, so that we are implementing things in the basis of design or the owner's project requirements that are truly going to be ready day one from a technology standpoint. So we're making sure that something that we're speccing from, say, a hardware and an infrastructure standpoint isn't going to be obsolete in that 18 to 24 months time, or do we have to design for aspects of flexibility and resiliency?
Fantastic. Yep. Any feedback for Graham on his response?
We absolutely agree. You know, having so many units that are in pre-development and development, you know, it's always been a challenge. As Graham said, that, you know, how do you make sure you're not obsolete the day you deliver? If you have that 18-month design period, but then for high rises, maybe 36 months of actual construction. And so it's extremely important to have some flexibility in those systems and try to, you know, anticipate what's going to come next. But it's so hard as technology is moving so quickly.
Yes, agreed. I've got another question for everybody here. Feel free to jump in if you'd like to answer. So this is a great conversation that we've been having. So how are technologies being vetted by operators and asset managers? For firms that are not vertically integrated, how are operators making decisions and communicating value to asset managers? So how are those discussions taking place?
Yeah, I think it kind of goes back to what do you use technology for, and at least in what I've really tried to focus on around a best in breed sort of tech stack. It's been to make us bigger, better, faster, stronger. We still have the same people and the same processes, and now what we're trying to do is really enhance the value that those people and processes bring to the table through either automation or technology or value enhancement. So what we do is we kind of look across how we do things and say, where is the biggest impact for us to deliver value? Whether that's, hey, what if we did this kind of product for residents and it would help them, you know, really feel value that they're getting for living where they are? Or, hey, what if we could automate this for our employees and create a better employee experience and help them understand how to reallocate their time to be more customer centric? Once you kind of identify where that gap is, you kind of prioritize those and say, all right, listen, we're spending too much time doing market surveys. So let's go look for different avenues in which we can either automate, update, get better information in it, and use cases around market surveys. Talk to the several people that are in and around that space, and then try and evaluate, is the juice worth the squeeze on sort of that ROI kind of concept. Sometimes the software is too nascent in the you need to kind of build out a little bit more. Sometimes the costs are a little too high. But when you kind of find something that's like, all right, let's go give it a shot. We really like to take a small, like 2 or 3 property kind of approach to it, walk and partner through it and just say, look, here's what we're thinking. We're going to try this out. Are you okay trying it out on your assets, or you just want to know the results or what's going on? A lot of times our great partners will go, yeah, let's see what happens there. And, you know, we'll keep a close eye on it. And we really set up some good parameters around it to say, all right, where's our starting point? Where's our end point? Where do we think we're going to end up? And are we giving ourselves enough time to see if there is a real adoption or change and improvement in that adoption?
Thank you, David.
So Jeanette, I think you'll see a lot of similarities on how we vet new technologies from an asset management perspective. I mean, we run the fine line of trying to decide what we should mandate at the asset management level versus what we want our operators to bring to us as suggestions and recommendations. So we actually have an innovation council within each of our property sectors. And so I chair our multifamily innovation council, and I have dedicated team members who help me vet all the different products out there. And I laugh because sometimes, you know, some of our operators like David, yes, they spend a lot of time convincing us to use certain products and to approve items in the budget. But sometimes I'm in the reverse role where I have found a technology that I need to convince my operators they need to buy into it to make it work, right? Because we see value either at the portfolio level or at the sustainability level. So the same, like David said, we're taking usually starting out with a pilot, just a few assets to make sure that it doesn't impede in the workflow, and that our operators will, readily embrace it. Otherwise, it's not going to work. But I think sometimes when it starts with us, it's a little bit easier to push down.
Absolutely, Yetta. I agree totally.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of parallels with the asset managers and the operations within the design and construction process, as well as the developer, owner, operator. We look to hire great architectural designers, engineers, and general contractors, and all of that work is, say, outside of our hands. So we're always looking for, what works best for them from a design standpoint, from a general contractor or subcontractor standpoint, so that the information is, say, modeled three-dimensionally in BIM or Revit, so that it's designed in that platform, it's estimated out of that platform, its construction is tracked to some extent in those same platforms, and there's continuity from design and construction. So, looking for the folks who are actually using that information on a day-to-day basis for their various roles, and having that arch from acquisitions, design, construction, into operations is crucial. It's always a fun balancing act and a really exciting conversation.
And all of those tie in one thing. It is really everyone's responsibility to be able to help vet this. It's not as simple as, we have, I'm on the property tech steering committee, and, we do certain things as a vertically integrated owner operator in some things, but we have third-party managers as well who manage, a pretty large sum of units for us. And we count on what they bring to us in terms of experience and new processes. We include that in all of our internal feedback. Same thing with, our IT team. They may have seen something out there, and our development team is always trying to stay, as you guys spoke about earlier, where, some assets you're going to be able to deliver in 12 months and some are 36 months. So their time frame is always different, but it is including everybody in the vetting process that is the important piece, if you want to make it well-rounded.
Yep, absolutely. So here's another question for you guys. I know we've been talking about this whole morning, but what challenges come with measuring the value of new technology? So many of you have already mentioned this prior, but if we can further discuss this.
Patience.
There you go.
Right? I mean, it's time, and sometimes we'll see a product or a service, and we know that it's the right solution, and you implement it, but it really takes, just from an experience standpoint, it takes 90 days to get things implemented where you can really start to measure it after that. If you expect to measure it after the first 30 or 45 days, you're not going to see the results that you're looking for the vast majority of the time. So it takes patience, and technology is a blur. We are running at such a fast pace. Technology changes so quickly that it's really hard to have patience when you implement something like this, because by the time you can really see if it's effective, there may be another product out there that's actually better for it.
Yep. Fair.
You may also have to go back to the measurements you set out in the beginning, like how do you define success? You might have to go back and tweak those. You think you might be able to define it one way, but then realize, maybe it wasn't as cost effective, but it increased efficiency. So it was still worthwhile. I mean, there's so many intangibles that go into that equation.
Agreed.
I think it's also important to not think it's going to be the silver bullet for anything, and say, look, as long as I've been in and around different things in prop tech for the last 4 years, I haven't found anything that's sort of this, big 10x shift. It's all been incrementally good, incrementally better, making us more efficient and everything. But I haven't seen something that's like completely game changing on the way that we manage or do anything with our assets, today. So I think not having these super high expectations, like all of a sudden it's going to drive, hundreds of thousands of dollars of value overnight, and really kind of taking this, agile approach, which just being, look, we're going to deploy it, we're going to see how it goes, and then as we continue to learn more and more about how we do things, how people behave, we're going to tweak it. and we're going to be okay with continual improvement. And we're not going to sit here and create this 9-month project plan to implement something, particularly to Jerry's point, that technology is ever changing. So if you take 9 months to work through the perfect process to deploy something, you may never actually deploy anything. And you might just be sitting there with, your old school kind of process and old school things. And you have to be okay with a little bit of failure along the way, and continuous improvement.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think what we've touched on earlier, and I think Jerry brought it up as well too, is there's a mindset, and also with patience. So I think if you do cultivate that mindset, and it's great to hear that folks like Yetta have an innovation and technology group that they're chairing, so that there's this consciousness and this continual discussion and debate about what's out there, what might work, what they're solving for. But having the patience to entertain those opportunities and ideas, either internally or coming from the operator side as well too. But also knowing what to measure, and to David's point, there aren't silver bullets, but there are small solutions. So identifying, what in your process or your chain that you're looking to solve for, identifying what might be a good fix, but really just beginning to measure. Did that save time? Did that present more information clearly to more people? So a decision could be made in a shorter amount of time to identify what an outcome or an opportunity might be, so that you can move the team forward with a little bit more confidence.
Yep, absolutely. We are down to our last 2 questions, and we definitely want to make sure that we are on time here. So next question: data transparency has become essential to asset management. What role is technology playing in ensuring this?
Well, I'll go first again.
Okay, Jerry.
I'd say that without technology, there's no transparency, and it plays such a vital role in having that transparency. To take it one step further, just the importance of the data integrity. So I mean, when the question is how essential is it? Data transparency is critical to everything we do. And I would say that industry-wise, as an asset manager, we relied on Excel workbooks to provide our data transparency for years. And whether there was an error in a formula or a data input error, we would never know, or we would have to find out because the output wasn't what we wanted. So that transparency is just really important.
Fantastic. Yetta, do you want to chime in?
Sure, and I think David may have referenced this before. I mean, data is important, but we get so much of it, as Jerry said, because of all the technology. You want to make sure the data that you're looking at is actionable. We're data junkies, we love data, but too much of it is also, I think it's a good thing, but it can be a bad thing. Like, you really need to weed through it and figure out what's the important data for you. I think for us, it's data security and data privacy that we lose sleep at night over.
Yep. Anybody else before I go to question number 8?
Yeah, I think, to Jerry and Yetta's points, the data definitions and integrity of that data, and really defining your single source of truth for the data. Where is it coming from? There are no duplicates. It's nice and clean. And then you have a confidence in whatever question you sort of ask that data, that you're not going to get this 2 different answers if you ask it 2 different times on, what did this person do for rent last month? And then you find that their name is in the system 2 different times. They've got, 4 different records, and you have no idea who's actually been contacting what person. And that data integrity, then it doesn't even matter what question you really ask, because you have zero confidence that you'll get the right answer in really anything. So the transparency is a huge piece of really the whole ecosystem, and driving the clarity of, is the data clean? Can we rely on it? and enough to ask, critical questions for us to move the business forward.
Excellent. Yes, I guess I mentioned before, my focus is on the design and construction, but really the whole point of these buildings is from an operations standpoint. And that's where the true value is. So oftentimes, we put a lot of effort and energy in creating data and information in the design and throughout the construction process and in the commissioning and in the quality assurance. But if that data and all the information that went into the design and construction is not accessible, is not light duty and easy to use for those operators, for those facility management teams, it really serves no purpose, even though so much time and concentration and spend was in creating, say, that beautiful, very large, very detailed as-built Revit model, whereas something more light duty, like 360 documentation through, say, a hollow builder, documenting course of construction is just a very easy light duty tool for that building manager to find the shutoff valve or where something was buried on the wall, so they don't have to dig through these large, robust Revit models of information. So to an aspect, it is data transparency, it's continuity through design and construction, but it's also what is light duty, what is easy, what is quick. So
I have definitely enjoyed this morning, listening to this conversation and all of your opinions. And I'm sure that this question that I'm going to ask, the last question, is you guys are on board with. Do you find that most asset managers see the value in technology in 2021? And do they still need to be persuaded? Yetta, I'm gonna have you answer this one.
All right, well, I guess I'm biased. I hope everyone who works with me and my team will say we see the value, because we're trying to be on the forefront of technology and
That's awesome.
trying our best to be right there with our operators and our partners and not be left behind. I really think most asset managers have come to realize that. You need to be embracing technology and not running from it. It's going to help solve a lot of issues. Like David said, won't solve everything, but it's going to help solve a lot, but really not to be left in the dark.
Yeah, adoption is totally picking up steam. And all of our partners are, out there, and all of the REITs and the different prop tech funds that are out there, whether Fifth Wall or venture funds or Navitas, they're all just raising crazy amounts of money from big institutions as well, really just wanting access to some of the early starts and the early things. Anything in the VC world is gonna fail. There's a large failure rate, but there's a few products in there that are really going to make huge strides. And I think you're seeing a lot of that, continued acceleration to trying new things, understanding that technology is going to be the next big thing forever. When I sort of really got into the real estate space, I was like, man, there's, large moats here. It takes a lot of money to go buy a large institutional, property. And it's, takes a lot to really buy and understand and develop real estate. Well, I think those barriers are coming down very quickly. There's a lot of competition in the space, and for people to get better and get better data, better information, make better investing decisions, create differentiating factors, create alpha. I mean, just over the last year, the way that prices in assets have gone up, you're going to have to get more creative in how you're going to extract value from the assets, and technology is going to really enable that. And I think it's really driven the industry to try new things to enhance that value, and it's going to continue.
I totally agree with what David said there. I think the industry has reached a tipping point with regards to using technology, but there's still room for movement with the trust of technology. Everyone, we know today that we need to have better information faster in order to make the appropriate decisions, or we're going to lose out on deals, or we're going to lose out on value. And so the utilization of technology, I think, has become much more just a general adapted piece. But the asset manager pool is also, it is getting younger, right? And, as people move through this, so the people that are entering into the asset management pool have already used technology for the vast majority of their working life. So that is helpful in terms of being able to get us to where we need to be decision-wise. We're not all the way there yet because we still need to develop that trust in technology. But I think that the use of technology with the asset management pool is really thorough at this point.
All great points. Like just the reminder is technology is a tool, and it's important to leverage it in as many directions as possible. But again, with the buy-in of the various teams, the folks who do touch it or are impacted by it. So, a lot of the work that I do is to do, a lot of it is the collaboration. It's not necessarily the technology or the tool, but it's getting people to openly communicate about what those issues are, what their pain points are, what they need help with. And if it can be solved with people power, great. If it needs to be solved with technology, great. But it only works if there's an openness and a communication, and as was previously mentioned, a trust and understanding of what we're looking to do with those tools and those technologies.
Absolutely. Any other comments?
Yeah, I would just add to what Jerry mentioned about the asset managers getting younger that are used to working with technology for most of their career. Our Multifamily Innovation Council is made up of associates from my team that have various experience levels. It's not just all the senior people like me that have 25 plus years. I wanted to have the mix of the younger demographic, who's probably the demographic we're trying to attract at most of our assets, and the associates that have been working with technology for a long time.
Absolutely. Well, I think this is a wrap. I think we've had a great morning. You folks have given us great input. I believe the viewers are going to love your answers and the conversation on how asset managers are utilizing technology. I myself, as a smart technology expert, look forward in continuing conversations with you all in regards to my product with ADT Multifamily. And it has been an absolute pleasure to be with you this morning.
Thank you.
Wow. Thank you all. This has been awesome. And yes, Jeanette, I know this virtual audience is giving you a huge virtual round of applause. You all have been amazing, and I thank you all for sharing your perspectives this morning. And for Jeanette, thank you so much for moderating and keeping us on track. This has been an awesome conversation. All right, for the audience. Oh yes, thank you. For the audience, it's time for you to make your way to your next session. Along the way, make sure you accept your connection request and take some time to check out our amazing exhibits. Thanks so much, and we'll see you around.